Kim. How are
Hey
you?
Sam, how are you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really good. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our LinkedIn Live series, ADHD in the Workplace. This is a place where we help generate ideas to support individuals with ADHD in the world of work. And I hope that through this series, you gain something, to help your organization with your diversity and inclusion agenda. So today, I have a very interesting guest on our LinkedIn Live. Kim Allingham is an entrepreneur with 15 years experience in people strategy and executive search for private equity and startups. So after discovering she has ADHD at the age of 41, she founded a company called Not Making Do, where she offers people strategy consultation, search, and neuro-inclusive design for tech startups, connecting them with ADHD women to help increase creativity and bridge creative gender skill gaps in the workplace. So, the topic we're discussing today is how to design a neuro-inclusive workplace. So, I will be talking to Kim about various things about what she does. So, first of all, thank you so much, Kim, for joining me on this LinkedIn Live.
No, thank you. It's been great, and thank you for the intro. You're so good at piecing it all together. What
But
is your thing?
it's all you, isn't it? Like this is you, the venture that you created, and the vision for what you want to do.
Yeah,
Can you tell me what Not Making Do is about, your new company, and what inspired you to found this company?
yeah, no, definitely. The name Not Making Do came from really working through the pandemic and realizing that so many people do make do in their choices for work, but also in businesses, people make do all the time when they're hiring. But really, it sort of came into the situation where we are now because, as you said, I discovered I was ADHD myself. And actually, it started off really where I was working with quite a few clients and suppliers who had ADHD. And it seemed to be popping up on my LinkedIn all the time and talking about it. And I was just like, hang on a minute, I need to sort of look into this a bit more. And actually, when I went to the doctors to discuss PMDD, which we discussed before, which is actually quite linked to ADHD, she actually mentioned it. And I thought, I feel like the universe is telling me that I need to be looking into ADHD. So when I looked into it and she assessed me, I found out I actually had it, which I had to need to wait till January to get the official diagnosis. But I really, from talking to all you guys, I just realised that there's so much support needed for ADHD women. Is it 50 to 75% of women don't even know they've got it? I think it's quite a high stat.
Exactly, and that's why we're diagnosed later in life, right? Because of the gender bias in diagnosis.
Yeah, and so many people don't even know they have it. But there's just no support. You have to wait so long to get tested. So I really wanted to. I saw there was a gap where when I was doing some research and I found out that actually only 1% of women want to work in startups. And when I was interviewing people who have ADHD women, they were like, no, we wouldn't want to work at startups. It's a nightmare. They just don't look after you.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of toying with STEM, but there's a lot of neurodivergent people in STEM. But everybody kept saying to me, tech is where we need women. There's a big gap there for women. I think only 3% of women are in tech. And the problem is, like, as you know, our brains are so creative, and there's a big gap for more women and more creativity and innovation. So I really feel like we're sort of this under the radar kind of talent, because I know actually I'm probably not very employable. Having been doing this thing for myself for quite a few years, and I think when I hear other entrepreneurs, they're like, yeah, we'll never get hired. And that's because companies don't understand how they work. We can be really intense. We can literally go all in with our projects, when we're hyper focusing. But also, they don't know how to manage. They want the flexibility or the accommodation. So I really feel like for us, we need to not make do, because we shouldn't have to just set up businesses to just get by. And also we shouldn't just have to accept just starting a business selling, I don't know, clothing because we feel that's all we can do, or not having any work because we can't get hired. So I really feel like for women with ADHD and men, obviously that will expand, we need to stop making do, and we need to really get our expertise out there, because there's so many strengths that people can actually leverage. When I was also researching, every sort of site I came on, it kept saying we're a disorder or a disability. And I just thought it was so negative. I've been working with my strengths for about 4 or 5 years, thank God, because actually I've been working with my strengths. And actually I see now ADHD as being a positive. I just think, I feel like I know who I am. And I feel like if we can get more women to really show, like from what you do, get people to bring out their best side and show what their strengths are, then companies are going to hire people more. And they're just going to have so many more ideas, lots more creativity. So yes, that's a long-winded probably version of why I really was quite passionate about to do it.
Yeah, I really resonated with what you said about, this, how ADHD is pointed out as a deficit, right? Because like you and I, we spent at least 4 decades being undiagnosed, not knowing that, right, okay, we feel different, but we don't know why, but like some things take like, a lot more effort, but also some other things are a lot easier,
Definitely, yeah.
So,
And you just think, you don't see that as a strength because it comes easy. So I've had people in the past go, oh, but it's easy for you. You can just do it easily. So I will produce work sometimes within 24 hours because I will literally just go down a rabbit hole and I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And then they won't really value what I'm doing because I think, well, it's easy for you. So then you start undervaluing yourself. So it really should be that, yes, do more of what you're really good at, because that adds so much value to companies. But then there's other things which we know we're not good at, which I don't know what your key things are, but yeah, executive dysfunction is really big. So we need to do more of what we're good at and get other people to do what they're good at.
Well, that's right, and that's why it starts actually from the ADHD themselves, to be more aware of where they need help and also what they're really great at, and also channel that, to like your company and your managers, just communicate your strengths to them so that, they can then put you in a place that you can shine, right? And also for managers to understand and support, these employees, because we know that the well-being of the employee, neurodivergent or not, it's important in an organization, but it tends to be people who feel least understood, who, tend to want to exit and get burnout. So
yeah, you feel like you're on your own. If I think about when I was working for companies, the worst thing for me was sitting in meetings where, you have the really loud people who were really confident in, talking about the ideas. And I'm sat there like, really shy, withdrawn, because I don't actually want to be that center of attention person. And then suddenly you're seen as this person who doesn't know anything or doesn't want to contribute. So then you're kind of sidelined a bit. So yeah, you're right. It's not just about us having the support, but it's also leaders and managers being aware that other people think differently. Just because you're really confident and you have loads of ideas that come out really quickly, other people need time to process. They need time to maybe think of ideas. For me, I come up with lots of ideas, but actually the best ideas, the ones that I have a day or two later, once they've had chance to sink in. So it's about changing the workplace. So giving people the opportunity to talk when they want to talk. And, if you've got ideas, give them a week to people to come to you direct and have that one-on-one conversation with you. And so I think it's educating leaders. And I've actually had a few people contact me since yesterday, since I outed myself, saying that, but it's just a label, which I messaged to you actually. And that, is it just a thing? Do people just want to say they're ADHD? And that's what we need to shift, is that not everyone's just a little bit ADHD or OCD. And I was guilty of that at the beginning because it is quite serious. We know how actually it affects our lives in a negative way. But what we're trying to do is make sure we can do more of the positive stuff, so it's not so negative. So if we can change what people think of it, then they're going to be more open to disclosing if they have it, if they want to help other people with it. And also, if someone's a little bit, say if you've got someone who's dyslexic or has autism or ADHD, etc., just understanding that they're going to process things differently. Like if you're going to have a massive change within a company, Some people need you to tell them in advance, to give them warning. I know from my ADHD brain, I will think of an idea and I used to just throw it on my team. And now I look back and think, gosh, I must have been a nightmare, because there were some people probably who needed time to process that. So it's understanding that we can all work different ways. So yeah, education from the top is probably where it needs to start.
That's right, Kim. And actually, I resonate with what you say, because people, like a few years ago, we thought that, the world is divided into introverts and extroverts, right? But then also, with if you have ADHD, you can find that you're not actually an introvert, but you're also not an extrovert. And the reason that you don't communicate your thoughts straight away is because it's still going on and round in your head, and you're trying to find the best way to present it. Right. And that's why, like, channels for communication, for feedback, can be a bit more diverse and flexible. So instead of having to voice your opinion, with like some people have no problems in saying what they want to say straight away, you could have a different channel where, people can put their feedback through text or an email afterwards, because we can then formulate our thoughts,
definitely. People prefer writing, don't they? Some people prefer speaking. So you're right. Yeah, there needs to be different sort of ways of communicating that.
Yeah. And so I'm really curious about what you think makes a neuro-inclusive workplace. Are there anything that employers should be aware of?
I think it's very similar to having like the people first approach, but more so like an individual approach, isn't it? Really, it's about, if you make your company people first and all about people and making sure people are seen and heard, that's really important. But I think the other edge for being neuro-inclusive is the accommodations you need for individuals. So even like, I sort of have my sort of scorecard that I use to help companies be neuro-inclusive, which has been adapted recently, which you really need the right systems and processes. So they've got to be accessible and easy for everybody. So if you just got like a handbook, which is loads of words, people aren't going to read it. You need it maybe visually or video. You need the right culture. You need people to be open, to be able to talk about if they want to disclose, if they need assistance. Not everybody's going to want to disclose they have, say, ADHD, etc. So it's making sure that there's things in place where it could be that you have, I used to sort of call it, it's like, you have your head of people or someone like that, but you need sort of like a champion maybe in a company where they are the person in the culture who talks about if you've got any problems, making it aware. You need, obviously with hiring, it's so important, and I've adapted the way I do hiring since I've learned this. So this is not a case of everyone seems to know about it. It's like we're all learning together. We need to make sure that our branding and our, careers page say that we're all about diversity and neuro-inclusion, that we use neuro-inclusion language, which then when people are looking for a job, they can feel, oh, I can apply, and we adapt the different techniques. So I was a big fan of video. I set up a video platform back in 2010, really rubbish. But I didn't actually continue with it and invest in it because I really felt like I was losing talent, because some people were so scared of getting in front of the video. So I really think, yes, we should stick video, but also have other options. So allowing people to have accommodations, really. So it's really looking at the whole process, looking at leadership, training. And the big thing which I focus on is experiences, because you can't see it. It's not what you're doing, it's how people are feeling. So that means you have to be listening. You have to have empathy. So they have to really look at the whole cycle of the employees, really, and look at every touch point to really make sure that they're not just talking about it, but they're doing it. So when I was working with companies to make sure their people experiences were good, they loved it, because they were going, yeah, you know what, we're going to attract loads of great people, but they never actually believed in it. They didn't really care about the people enough. So you have to be able to walk the talk. So this is really important for companies.
Right, Kim, I'm going to ask you a question. It's quite a challenging one, but I'm sure you'll be amazing. What do you think companies want? What do organizations want for their company, for their people? Is it like increased work performance, increased productivity?
I think at the end of the day, when I speak to business owners, because obviously I focus more on startups, is that they all really believe in what they're doing. They're really passionate about their product, their services, and they really want to make it a success. They want people to know about it. They want people to buy their products and services, and they really do care about people. It's not that they really don't care about people. So they want everybody who they bring into their fold to be really happy, love what they do, but they want people to work. They want people to be productive. They definitely don't want to manage people. They hate most companies don't want to manage people. But if you go with this sort of approach, people self-manage, because if you hire the right people and work to their strengths, and you make an environment where they can be supported, then they'll just do their thing. So they want the productivity, but ultimately they want the money. But it's everything: positive experiences, productivity, performance. And I think the big thing that they're missing is this creativity sort of section where, when people go, I just want to have new ideas, I just want you to think of something. And then people would be in a boardroom and they'll be brainstorming and they'll be thinking, we can't think of how we can pivot, or how do we adapt this product. Well, if you have like a real diverse set of minds, they're going to get that. So I think that everyone's crying out for creativity, to be different, to be unique, to stand out. But how can you do that when you haven't got the people to do it? Because a business is only an idea. What makes the business is the people. So I think, it's people are struggling for talent now. And this is where I think, there's so many neurodivergent people who are out of work or struggling. And I think companies don't want to hire them because they feel like it's too hard work. They're a nightmare. And that's what the feeling is. Years ago, I remember companies saying, just don't give me anyone with any mental health issues. And I'd be like, this is a long time ago. But and it's those sort of things. They don't want the hassle. Right. So, they want the creativity. They want the really good talent who really know what they can do and thrive. It's just finding them.
But Kim, it's so interesting what you said, right? But years ago, before the pandemic, mental health might still be stigmatized, but nearly everyone had suffered over COVID-19 pandemic. And then, the managers that probably said that to you probably had their own issues.
Yeah, and that's probably why they relate to it, really. And it doesn't have to, I think mental health is such a broad topic, isn't it? You can suffer, from grief. I've experienced that. Loss, that causes, difficulty. People being made redundant, family illness. Everybody's going to experience some challenge in their mental health at some point. Even me in the last 3 months, I will be honest that it threw me, because I was kind of like, who am I? And then you withdraw from people. And you don't want businesses to think that you're not good at your job. You just need a bit of space. You need accommodations to be able to do your job well.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it does take time to navigate the late diagnosis, because it is a bit of an identity question, isn't it? Because we spent so long being this one person, believing that, the strengths that you have is because of your willpower or whatever. But then, being diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah, you do feel like all the things which make you are suddenly not you, they're the ADHD. Yeah. So people used to say to me, oh, you've got so much resilience, you've got so many ideas, and oh, it's so great that you're so, spontaneous. And and I've been known to literally say I'm going to get on a plane and turn up at the airport the next day. And they were like, oh, you just live life on the edge. And I'm like, it's not me now. It's my ADHD. So you do question who you are. But actually now I'm thinking, what? Not knowing I had ADHD got me to here. So I don't feel bad about it. I probably would have been a little bit more hesitant to do the things I did. Like when I first set up my business, I just left, set it up the next day. Didn't know what I was going to do, what I was going to call it. You wouldn't do those things if you knew that you're not supposed to take risks.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you say, like not knowing you have ADHD, it's almost like, because I come from a place of science, used to be a scientist. So it's almost like a double blind experiment where you put your experimental subject into an environment where they don't know what they are, they don't know what they, that they have a certain condition. And then you put them in and then you see how they perform, and everything that this person can perform goes against what society defines
Yeah,
as ADHD,
get
right? And
labeled for the wrong reasons, don't you?
exactly. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a label that people put on, ADHDers because it looks like we can't pay attention, but we actually have so much attention.
Yeah, and
We're thinking about so many things at once, like 3D thinking. At the same time I'm talking to you and you're talking to me, you're thinking about the next thing, aren't you?
yeah.
You're thinking about how to, approach
I'm thinking about my cat who's just gone outside with a mouse, but it's these little things. At least he's taken it outside now. So yeah, always thinking about stuff.
Yeah,
And I think, you always sort of see it as that hyperactivity, can't sit still, but it's our brains that can't sit
yeah,
still. And what I love is when I learned about the fact that we're just allergic to boredom, which just sums it up
exactly.
really. And how I think when following from someone on Instagram actually, or TikTok, obviously that's where we've all been going down that hole, is that if we're curious about something, or we find something interesting, or if we've got a deadline or it's challenging, we're all over it. So it's a case of, like, I found in the last 4 or 5 years, I can just get totally absorbed in stuff and I love it. But when I didn't know what my purpose was, I'd be going out all the time drinking. I'd be, channeling that dopamine chasing in different ways. I'd always have to be going on holiday, always have to be doing
Yeah,
stuff. Um,
yeah.
so I think it's definitely not a lack of attention,
Mhm.
too
Yeah,
much attention, isn't it?
absolutely. Back to our question, the next one, where I want to talk about the benefits of creating a neuro-inclusive workplace design for both the organizations and the employees. I spoke to you before about this, and I think you mentioned something really interesting, and that the pairing between the manager and the employee is so important for the success,
Massively, yeah.
of that relationship. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
And
so I've been doing it for quite a few years anyway, but this has just taken another level where a lot of managers don't go through coaching or training themselves. And we can only really connect with someone else or support someone else and understand them when we know ourselves. So what I feel is that, especially if you're looking at a PA CEO sort of collaboration, if you don't know, if a manager or a leader doesn't know who they are and they don't know their leadership style, and they bring in someone who they're not prepared to understand either, there's a clash. So when you have the right partnership, where also it's complementing the strengths. So say for a lot of leaders, there'll be the big visionaries, the big ideas people. They'll a bit like us, where we're just like constantly thinking of something else to do. But you need the implementers, the people who are going to go, you know what, that's not quite right for now. You need to hold back. You need to sort of maybe do this first. They'll do the research. They'll make sure that the small print's done. So managers really need to know who works well with them to sort of fit into their slot. So it's their values. They need to share the same values, the same beliefs, the same passions. I've had people in the past who they say they don't like their bosses. And how is it ever going to work when you don't respect them? So yeah, the relationship with the management is really important. And if they don't understand you as a person and how you work and what you need, then there's going to be big problems. And that's why I think you see a big turnover, because all of us are always figuring out who we are.
mm-hmm.
And yet, as a company, when we're hiring, we punish people for, like, well, you've not been quick enough. You've not done this. You've not done that. Well, you all sort of need to be collaborative. And this is why I love the collaborative career sort of idea, where if people figure out what they do and what's important to them, then you go out to a company and you see if you can actually partner up. Where the problem is at the moment is that companies will say what they want, job searchers will look for what they want, and they both just make do. Because you know what? We
Right.
need money, we need to hire. So yeah, the relationship needs to be really important. So it's not just one thing you can do. So when people say, oh, I want to hire X, Y, and Z, and then I talk about all the other things that are needed to make that hire work, they get a bit overwhelmed and like they think, oh, it's too much. But if you do it all at the beginning and do it consistently, it's not such a big deal. You can hire really, really quickly.
Yeah. I do also wonder if the reason they find it too much hard work is they are overwhelmed themselves.
Definitely, that's really. So it's about identifying themselves and getting the support.
Yeah.
So if they feel overwhelmed, what's the reason? Is it because there's too much work? Is it because they don't believe in their company anymore? I fell out of love with my first company, and that caused major problems with my mindset because I felt a failure and it didn't work. But you've got to have a serious question with yourself going, why isn't this working? I remember times I'd be sat in the office till 10 o'clock at night thinking, I'll have a glass of wine and I'll go again the next day. It's just, you can't run a business effectively when you're literally in burnout. So yeah, leaders need to make sure their mental health's important. Discuss if there's anything which might be unique to them. Some people are finding out they're dyslexic at 40, 50 years of age still. So that massively impacts your work.
Well, exactly. Like you say, it's like a new identity that you are coming to understand, and also realizing a lot of your traits are explained by science rather than, actually.
Yeah, there's so many things, isn't it? It's like, I literally go from like being, if I'm doing some research on a project, I could be lost at it for like 12 hours and the whole house would be just like a bomb. And then suddenly I'd be like a whirlwind and I'd do about 100 things in about an hour. And I'd be like, how did I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And back to what you say about, the company needing to really be more mindful about their human capital, whether it's at the director level or, the people who does the work, the managers and the executors, right? Because the human capital is the intangible value, people, the people that drive your organization is what makes it, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's so difficult, because you're dealing with people who don't even know themselves half the time. And we're always learning about ourselves. So that's why we don't want to deal with it, because it is harder. It's easy to manage selling more product or more services, but it becomes a bit of a roller coaster of like, it's a lot more effort, isn't it? And actually, no one's very happy in those environments. Everybody's stressed. Everybody's just not happy. And I think this is important for us in the world, really, because obviously, when you're unhappy at work, you take it home to your friends and family, and then it impacts them. It impacts what you do socially. So it has a knock-on effect. If one person in one company is unhappy, that can impact 30, 40 people, really.
That's right, and I resonate with that, actually, because I probably had a bit of corporate burnout myself, being in an environment that wasn't really flexible for me to juggle between being someone who works and then someone who has children.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the reason where I feel like I don't really want to go back just yet, until there is a role that is flexible.
Well, yeah, which is accommodating to you. And I think that's the common thing with women, and why there's a big gap is, especially like say with ADHD with us, is that hormones exasperate it. And I've, noticed in the last 10 years, this is where my symptoms have got worse. So yeah, through perimenopause, menopause, childbirth. So this is why I think, was it the average age of people, not just women, is 28 in startups. And genuinely, if you think, there's so many women who don't want to be in that environment, because like you said, you need to be able to look after the house, the children, and also you're looking after how your brain works. And so, yeah, I can see why people don't want to work in it. But if you have a company where they'll let you work on your terms, doing what you do best, you win and they win. It's just, I feel like it's like a no-brainer, but of course that's how our mind thinks, isn't it?
Well, that's right. We're always challenging the status quo, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think that's another thing about feeling. Yeah, I think that's that thing of when you think that was your personality and how, like, yes, because I've always been challenging it. Back in 2010, I was always going, you need to support and train your staff. We used to offer like a 12-month development program for all employees as inclusive as part of it. And I felt like everyone was going, why are you challenging what works? Don't try and fix what's not broken. But yeah, so what I thought was my personality, definitely, it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. And after the pandemic, like I read a post this morning saying that, with the pandemic, everyone starts to reevaluate why they're working. Is it important? And what is really important in their lives? And most of the time, it's not work.
So it's
work that works, right? It's work that works for your circumstances, right?
Yeah. So this is why if you create a neuro-inclusive workforce, it works for everybody. Because actually, as a society, we're all chasing the dopamine now. They're all becoming ADHD in a way, and this is why people feel like it's all become a bit blurred. And we all want that flexibility. So it isn't just for the neurodivergent you're accommodating for. It works for everybody.
Exactly. So it's interesting that we identify as neurodivergents and we see the other people as neurotypical, right? But I know that just based on my experience in meeting people, no two person is the same. No two person has the same brain, because we don't have to have a neurodivergent condition to have burnout. We might suffer trauma from our childhood.
PTSD massively affects.
Yeah, exactly. And trauma is everywhere, and it can impact how people perceive, like normal human relationships. So yeah, if we make a culture that works for neurodivergent, it works for everyone.
Definitely, and that's where it's so blurry, isn't it? Because you have to look at if you're going through trauma or have PTSD. There's so many like other illnesses hidden illnesses, which, as you said, that could be the problem, and there could be like personal problems at home, which has the same impact and affects their productivity. So, yeah, it's a once you start going down that rabbit hole of feeling like what the benefits of it. It's huge, really.
Yeah, and I also spoke to someone who has chronic fatigue syndrome, and I just wondered if that was burnout. When you constantly feel tired when you have to go back to the office.
I think I can definitely identify that with if I've been working on a project, an intense project for 2 or 3 months, I will literally be sleeping for a week. And that happens for everybody when you're busy. If you can't, people, when they're not taking holidays, not taking breaks, you think, well, you're so passionate about what you do, the cause you've got, you can't let people down. But everybody experiences burnout. And then when they're having burnout, they end up quitting their jobs because they think they're not good at their job, they're not supported. And so the companies who keep people generally are the ones who recognize when people are beginning to burn out, or they're, I know I have RSD, which, that rejection sensitive disorder, where we can take things a bit to heart too much. So now I know that that's it. I feel like I'm not so much. So it's having more open conversations in the workplace. So if you feel like someone's being really sensitive and getting really upset, is there another reason? Is it they're not just having tantrums?
Yeah, exactly. Very interestingly, I spoke to a founder of a director of a tech startup recently, because I told him what I did, and he was like, "Can you tell me what are the symptoms of ADHD?" Because he identifies with it, and wondering why he was the way he is, and why he, as a director, he goes in and then he gives a lot of ideas, out every minute, and then his employees struggle to keep up with him, and then he's always worrying. Yeah, and he's always worrying about something. When you're a director as well, I suppose you got to think about how to make paychecks and everything. So, but yeah, a lot of founders of startups, people who start their own business, the entrepreneurs, most of them have ADHD.
Yeah, right? I think it's like 300%, or something chance, or 300 times likely to be an entrepreneur if you have ADHD. And that's why, I'm similar. I've got lots of clients who I think they probably are.
Yeah.
But the problem when you're going back to that connection with your employees is that not everyone works like them or us, etc. Having loads of different ideas and switching from one thing to another really quickly is really good when you need to be agile in a business. But it could be too, I always compare it as that you're either agile or fragile. Because if you're changing too much too quickly, it's not being agile, it's just being really precarious, and actually it's not just damaging for the business, but the people around you, everybody's like, what do we do now?
Empathy or following up.
Yeah, and you have people who will thrive off that. And this is where you always have a couple of people behind that leader who will be like, oh my God, this is brilliant. But you can't just do it to support those couple of leader followers. You need to be able to look after how everybody
Exactly.
deals with that.
That's really insightful. I know you're also working on launching ADHD Jobs, so which you want to help women with ADHD get into.
Because obviously we don't like to do one thing at a time, do we?
But this is related as well, in what you do in helping neurodivergent people in the workplace. So you want to help women with ADHD, so specifically women to begin with, to get flexible, remote or part-time work at neuro-inclusive tech startups. So your focus is on tech.
It's on tech, actually, because I really wanted to this time round speak to as many people as possible to find out where there was a problem, what was needed, and it came up quite a few times that tech needs it, and I'm really passionate about that. I love everything. I've worked for 10 years with private equity firms who invest in technology, so it's always been quite passionate. So NMD, Not Making Do, is all about finding and supporting companies to be neuro-inclusive, to make them that, so then we can say to people who have ADHD, we've already vetted them, we already know that they understand it, we've set up the businesses to be able to accommodate you. And then it's for technology as well, it needs that creativity and that innovation more so. So if we can bridge that gender gap and bring in more creativity, help women to build their businesses, to get more contracts and new jobs, then there's lots of wins for everybody. So ADHD Jobs will be where it'd be more like a job board, where I want it to launch into, where there's like coaches, training, support, workshops, etc. And then NMD is more the building of the neuro-inclusive. But I see it, I'm going to have a section for men as well, so they can sign up. But I would like to bring someone in, like a guy with ADHD, who would like to support the guy side, because men and women are so different with ADHD. Definitely. So I'd rather focus on what I know about and where I feel there's a big need. And I really want to be able to provide like a fund. So a percentage of all my fees from executive search and the design is going to go back into supporting people get assessed, supported, trained. So if you use executive hire, this is like the model I had years ago. We would do all that as part of the recruitment process. But say for ADHD Jobs, then there'll be a percentage of that will go into a fund. So everyone that uses it, a percentage of the profits will go into a fund. So if you have someone who's not working, who desperately needs to be assessed, if we've got a pool of money there, we could help them. Or, there's ways to explore that. But I really want that to be able to, get more people support. So I think, as there's been a few conversations, then before you get diagnosed, there's no support. You're just literally left in limbo to do your own research. And then when you have been diagnosed, it's really only about getting treatment. And not everybody's going to want to get the treatment, but you want the support. So I think there's a real, need to be able to offer that. So everybody I would personally be working with would get that. But I want other companies and other people to have that support as well.
Well, that sounds really amazing, and such a great and much needed, company to launch and help women and also men with ADHD, get the jobs that, will be able to increase the number of people in tech startups. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Kim.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me. It's been really great. I know last time we spoke, we just kept talking for like hours, I think. So apologies if I rabbit on.
No, it's great hearing your thoughts. It's always such a cozy discussion with you. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in from wherever you are in the world. We will be sharing the recording of this episode on the ADHD Girls YouTube channel, and also as part of our work in helping organizations to improve neurodivergent employees' well-being and performances, helping to increase workplace happiness and reduce turnover. I'm interested to have open discussion with organizations to help deliver their diversity and inclusion agenda regarding creating more neuro-inclusive workplace. So please do get in touch. Thanks, Kian.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam.